Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Filippo Catalano. Filippo is the Chief Information and Digitization Officer of Reckitt Benckiser Group, a nearly $18 billion revenue company that's in the business of hygiene, health, and nutrition. He's been in role for 2.5 years. He has a broad remit to include traditional IT, but also broader digital business and data. I look forward to hearing more about how he manages each. Prior to Reckitt, Filippo was the group CIO of Nestle. Filippo, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's a pleasure. Well, Filippo, you are the Chief Information and Digitization Officer of Reckitt. And for those who may be less familiar with Reckitt, please take a moment and describe the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reckitt is one of the leading CPG companies in the world. We have three categories we play in. One is hygiene, where our mission is to make sure that people around the world have access to hygiene as a foundation of their life and their health. Our other business unit is health. We play in OTC and a few other categories such as VMS and sexual wellness. And the other one is nutrition, with key brands that help infants around the world to have healthy starts, and also other fields in nutrition. The company is based in the UK. We are one of the key food companies and has an international footprint. We have operations everywhere in the world, and I'm sure a lot of the people that will listen to this, if they look around their house, they will have 3 or 4 products at home.
That's excellent. And as I mentioned, you're the Chief Information and Digitization Officer. Talk a bit about your role, if you would.
My mission at Reckitt is indeed to take everything around the area of, let's say, IT, technology, digital, and data, and make sure that this is used in the company to drive its transformation, to improve its operation, and to help us serve consumers and customers around the world in the best way possible. So my team's remit is quite a broad one, and actually at the time of a big transformation of the company, it's quite exciting to see all these pieces coming together.
And in fact, after you joined, you rebranded the IT organization to IT and Digital. Talk a bit about the rationale there, if you would, Filippo.
Yeah, I think when I joined the company, one of the first things we did is really to bring together under the same roof, in the same house, everybody that was working on technology, data, and digital in the company around the world, to rebuild the global function. And for me, one of my key beliefs is that modern IT, modern technology is digital as well. So there is no way to win, to be value delivery focused, and to provide transformation capabilities to the company if you don't tie all the pieces together.
And you mentioned the broad remit: IT, technology, digital, data. I wonder, especially on the data side, when you joined the organization roughly 2.5 years ago, what did you find in terms of data capabilities, and what sorts of areas of emphasis or areas of improvement have you focused on there?
After I joined, I would say that if you work in consumer goods, the data is always has been for many years one of the key foundations of how the companies are run. You know, how you talk to customers, how you talk to consumers, how you optimize your own operations. What we had to do with my team here in Reckitt was to basically relaunch and recreate a solid company-wide data and analytics strategy, and we rebuilt the work in this area together with my team, looking at really going back to some of the foundations of data and analytics. And one of the foundations for me is the FAIR model, FAIR, which is an industry framework to say that data needs to be findable, needs to be accessible, needs to be interoperable, and needs to be reusable within the enterprise. I have very strong belief if data strategies within companies don't embrace those principles of FAIR, they are limited in the way they can deliver value and they can scale in the enterprise. Another, I think, important element of a strong data and analytics strategy is to articulate the fact that this is a continuum that starts with strong data quality, data governance, data engineering, and then you go up the stack to analytics, reporting, descriptive, prescriptive, and to what you can do with machine learning and AI. If you don't do the homework of strong foundations on data, it's very difficult to get the value that you want at the end. You will do a lot of POCs, you will do a lot of tests that look good, but it will be very difficult to scale in the typical enterprise.
And to talk a bit about the people element of this, if you would, Filippo, no doubt, important for you to have great team members with the appropriate skills and perhaps even the means of growing those skills in order to better contribute to your vision there. Talk a bit about how you've built the team around this, the data team that brings this to life.
The good news today is that there is a lot of training opportunities out there. You don't need to build internal, upskilling, reskilling type of programs. There's so much available there in the platforms that all of our companies are using to provide on-demand training content to the employees. I think that's the first one. Another element is that data professionals that understand also and experience in their life different parts of the business are more effective and more powerful. So it's always finding a combination of business expertise, functional expertise, and data and analytics skills. If you combine the two things together, you're going to be much more successful. And the other element is from a team point of view is that while on one side you want to make sure that you have the right platforms, the right common capabilities, the right shared components, you want also to make sure that as much as possible, everybody in the company becomes a data scientist. Everybody in the company becomes a citizen analyst in a way. And what we try to do, and I think is an important part of everybody's trying to do transformation in the company, is to find ways to get out of the way so that you can unleash creativity and power of people everywhere in the organization to do what they need to do on data and analytics, but also to do it on the right platforms so that things are done in a fair way, but also in a safe way. And so how do you create modular capabilities? How do you create common data assets that can be used by everybody in the company with the right safeguards for certain type of data assets? That's key for me. You will be successful when you have, basically all of your employees base being, in a way, being able to self-service on a lot of your data landscape to create insights.
You alluded to the advances towards artificial intelligence, no doubt something, a broad topic that Reckitt has been leveraging for quite some time. What's your latest thought process in terms of the future of AI and what excites you as you think about it?
That's such a hot topic today in the industry, in the press. We're of course on this topic since a while. And by the way, there is a lot of machine learning and AI that most of the companies like ours have done for quite a few years without calling it AI. So I think that's the first realization, is that there is much more going on that people maybe realize or believe. The second thing we are trying to do is that, again, AI, especially Gen AI, is quite a game changer in some of the areas of the overall AI landscape. But still, it requires, if you really want to be delivering competitive advantage, to have high quality data that you own within the company to do those refinements, to do those specific model trainings, to do things that truly are a competitive advantage. If you don't have that, you will be in the middle of the pack doing exactly what the others are doing. And it will be very difficult to create truly an advantage. So I go back to the point of data foundation, data quality, data governance is a very important precondition for success in AI. The other thing is to consider is also the point of responsibility. I think all of us working in this sector, and I personally have been working on AI for most of my career, from medical devices, AI for medical devices, to nutrition, to other areas, is the point of how do you do it in a responsible way. I think that all of us are busy to not just to make sure responsibility is embedded in the right way, but also that we continuously monitor and update. Given the advancements that we have in the outside world, we monitor the responsibility principles that we need to have in our data beyond the legislation, which is of course something that we all consider. There is a lot to be done on responsible use of AI in the enterprise, from how you define your training data sets, how you remove bias, how do you introduce auditability along the process. There are so many things that our analysts and our employees in general need to be stay on top of.
In terms of additional foundational elements, I know that from our past conversations, we got to know each other when you were the group CIO at Nestle, and you had what you described as the AAA architecture. And I know that's something you've carried with you to Reckitt as well. Can you describe that as an important foundational element to what you've described?
I'll try, at least without what I would normally do with a nice whiteboard. So I'll try. And by the way, this is something that, together with some of my colleagues and different teams, I think we have refined over time. I think is an important part of how I see technology driving transformation in every company. So the AAA model basically says that if you do technology and digital in a company, you have three ways of doing well. The first one is you take capabilities that are out there and you adopt them. That's the first A. So you do really minimal work to make a capability that exists on the marketplace, and you use it in enterprise, knowing that you will have minimal, if not zero, competitive advantage in doing so. But at least your leverage is something that somebody else is doing for you. The second aspect of the A is the adapt, where you have something that is there in the marketplace, but you use mostly configuration to say that capability is out there, but I'm going to use the native capabilities of that thing that I'm sourcing to adapt it into my landscape. So how I integrate it in the right way. How do I configure business process and maybe taxonomy differences within my company? But importantly, if the capability gets upgraded by the provider that you source it from, you are on the upgrade path. You don't get 12 months, 24 months behind from a technology bet. And then the last A stands for assemble, which is basically saying, when I really need competitive advantage, I need to assemble capabilities in a modern way, and there are different frameworks there on how to do it with the Mac approach, with the other API first type of approaches. You basically say, I'm going to assemble something that is really specific to my company at this moment in time, because I'm going to get competitive advantage out of it, and I'll do it in the most modular way possible. And by the way, I continuously monitor how this is evolving over time, because maybe a few years later there is an entrant that is going to provide you what was before a unique competitive advantage as an adopt or an adapt approach. And the last point is that you try to steer away from the danger area, which is called the BB area, which is the buy and build. A lot of us that has been long enough in the enterprise working on technology, we've been asked all the time, hey, is this something that you buy or something that you build? And that has always been the wrong question, because the question is not whether you buy or build. The question is, are you actually buying something, but it actually doesn't work as intended? So you build on top of something that you buy, and you create a ton of technology that's a lot of cost for questionable competitive advantage. That's the zone where you don't want to be in and move away from. So if you're transforming your enterprise, I always recommend to start from an architecture view. use architecture as a way to drive the strategy. We say architecture as a strategy. If architecture is used as a strategy, then you can truly design a roadmap for your transformation that is giving you some of those choices in a more intentional way.
Very interesting insights. I appreciate you sharing those as well. Filippo, these are very dynamic times, to say the least, with a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of need for resilience in our lives and our businesses. One thinks of coming out of the pandemic. You were in Europe, and on the continent, there's currently a war with all sorts of dynamism. These are times when technology can be a source of resilience for their enterprises. And I wonder what thoughts you have in terms of how best to foster that.
Absolutely. We see this since a few years, that the role of technology has evolved from, being one of the custodians of the classic business continuity management, business BCPs type of work, into a broader, adopting a broader lens. Through technology, data, digital capabilities, today you can actually help to secure in a proactive way the way an enterprise operates around the world. How do you, for instance, prepare for things that might happen somewhere in the supply chain, in some of the partners you work with, or within your own offices and employee bases? This is a much higher priority now, on our purview. And I think myself and many of my colleagues out there, we are trying to bring some of the technology enabled resiliency to a broader part of the enterprise. This is going beyond the classic cyber resilience, beyond the disaster recovery type of methodologies, and really looking more into how can technology play a role in securing the resilience of the enterprise to the inevitable sudden change that comes in today's world.
I wanted to also ask you, you spend an awful lot of time with the startup community. You've been on the advisory board of a great number of organizations. You're on the board of directors for organizations as well. Talk a bit about how you see organizations like yours working best with venture-backed companies and the symbiosis in that relationship.
That's one of my lifelong and career-long passions, indeed. And I always try to be very well connected to the startup movement, the startup community throughout my career, and found it as an incredible source of personal inspiration and personal growth. And so the first thing from a personal point of view is that I'm very, very thankful throughout my 20 plus years in the industry to have had the chance to meet and partner with key startups and key VCs along the way that helped me and the companies I was working in to really understand the important technology trends out there. And then I think it's important for how do you actually going to work with startups in a typical enterprise setup? Because if you look at the startup scale-up phase, some of those companies are not ready to fully work with a typical enterprise. And for me, one of the suggestions I give to my teams is to be very intentional on how they can be, for the right capabilities, how they can be the landing pad into the enterprise of some of those new capabilities out there. Because it takes a bit of faith and it takes a bit of barrier busting to make sure that some things that you believe are going to be important or they're going to change dramatically how the enterprise technology team operates, they need to be protected and nourished the first time they get in touch with your enterprise. I think there is also another thing that needs to happen. It needs to be intentional about the innovation you want to do with startups. If you do just general scouting, some people call it innovation safaris, you will see a lot of things and you will not do a lot of change. I think you need to be very intentional to have a disciplined innovation process that says, I know what's out there, but also I know what I need, and trying to marry the art of the possible with the needs and trying to make the two things work together. I think that's where the magic happens.
Very interesting. We wanted to also ask you, we've already talked about a number of important trends centered around data, analytics, artificial intelligence. As you look to the future, are there any additional trends, whether technology or business or any others that come to mind that particularly excite you, Filippo?
Look, I'll give you maybe one that is not so exciting, but is super important, which is efficiency. What we saw already in my world, and I talk regularly to a lot of my peers in the industry, is that it's important to bring more efficiency to the way we do work with technology and data in the typical company. The market has its own dynamics, right? Commodity pricing, geopolitical factors, inflation, and so on. And one thing that is happening to technology leaders is to make sure that they can continue to optimize the way they operate the technology landscape of the company. The operation side of the technology in an enterprise is really the bread and butter to allow you is the table stakes to be able to do the rest. And if you want to transform the company, you need to invest, but you need to find a way to release resources, either people, financial resources, or attention from what you do in the day-to-day, optimize it continuously, and reinvest in the new capabilities. And going back to the point about architecture, if you have an intentional architecture vision, this will help to find those efficiencies. And so it's a trend. It's not maybe the most innovative trend, but there is a lot of innovation happening right now to make sure that those efficiencies can be identified and then realized. Think about process mining. Think about using AI for the technology processes within the company, from support to coding to testing to quality assurance. There are so many opportunities to identify and release efficiencies to be reinvested in transformation.
It's been an interesting theme, I think, across multiple parts of this conversation, Filippo, of ensuring that as a tech and digital leader, you are getting the basics right, setting a sound foundation in order to further innovate, in order to add greater levels of value. That if you don't have an efficient shop, if your data program isn't set up for success, then your pathway to ultimate top line growth driven by digital capabilities and data insights, for example, are going to be minimized as a result of that. It really sounds like that's an area of focus for you, is ensuring that you have the building blocks in place to ensure that the larger value contribution is even possible. Fair point?
Absolutely. You summarized well. I think the people forget in some of the narratives that you hear in the outside world, they forget that foundations are key for long-term sustainable delivery of capabilities. They don't make the news most of the time, but if you don't have strong foundations, you will do a lot of great one-off proof of concepts and pilots and success stories, but very, very little will get out of that stage to truly make an impact in the enterprise. So it takes patience as well.
Very good. Filippo, I wanted to close by asking you, as somebody who's had more than a decade and a half at P&G, you spent time at Nestle. I mentioned you were the group chief information officer there. Now your role is chief information and digitization officer at Reckitt. As you contemplate your rise to roles of greater responsibility at companies of consequence, what have been the difference makers along the way that have facilitated that route?
I think in hindsight, it's very easy to connect the dots. I'm not sure it was that clear while I was taking some of those decisions. But I think one thing that I think paid out for me was always be very, very curious about technology. Never stop experimenting and testing and connecting and networking with the people, organizations, and thought leaders that better than me were able to show me the unevenly distributed future that was already out there. So that's the first thing. The other one for me is the fact that I believe in careers where people take intentional choices for breadth, so they learn more areas, but also they start to go deep in many areas. It's important, I think, in today's world where technology is so, it's permeating so many aspects of how company and society work, is to have experience, have had real life, hands-on experience on many of the technology areas, different functional areas, different business areas, because this way you will be, I believe, a better leader in helping your teams and coaching your teams going forward. And maybe the last thing that I tell my team all the time is also good technology leaders will look at ways to make at least part of their role obsolete over time. Technology is about exponential change in how things are done, more slow applied to different parts of the technology landscape. And like we want to change the world of the companies that we support and we enable and we drive through tech, it's also important to look at inside our own roles and see what can we do in our teams with technologies, with automation, to eliminate some of the components of the work, to really make sure that we move forward to the other newer areas. So these are, for me, without pretense, maybe the three things I would highlight.
Fascinating. I really appreciate that reflection, Filippo. As you say, sometimes it's easier to view that progress backwards than to live it forwards. But your advice, no doubt, will help others who would wish to perhaps have a career that rhymes with yours achieve some of the same. Filippo, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation covering the transformation you've already been leading across your 2.5 years at Reckitt, but a bit more about your remarkable career, generally speaking, as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, thanks for having me.